Greetings, members one and all of the Salivation Nation. Silver and gold. Monetary sanity in an insane world. Let's explore. By any measure, we are living in uncertain times, troubled times, unnecessary tragedy and atrocities, and unnecessary spending. A lot of it is unnecessary and quite insane. In every aspect and every way, we are living in a world bizarro on pretty much every front. The United States of America has lost its standing in the world as a leader of freedom, standing by her word. The eagle represents strength in the world today, but nonetheless, we are far from it on multiple fronts. As of the recording of this video, we are living in an absolute atrocity in a withdrawal from a war that is essentially surrender as opposed to a strategic withdrawal with conditions on the ground. We're letting the enemy set the conditions. We're doing the same thing with our fiscal policy, with our monetary policy, with our budget, and we've been doing that for many years through multiple administrations. The mistakes that have been made in the war in Afghanistan certainly do reflect upon our monetary policy as well. 20 years in war in one nation, and multiple decades of an eroding currency. Yes, the dollar, that which we live for, essentially, and it lives to essentially drain us of wealth every year. Per average, this by design loses 2% of value in the dollar. One of these days, it's going to catch up to us. Because when we lose standing in the world, and we lose the status of being the sole superpower, which I believe right now we are not. We are not the sole superpower. China is right up there and strengthening. They're already positioning themselves to deal with the Taliban. And Russia as well is a growing threat in the region. And so we have the geopolitical concerns that certainly do affect the prices of gold and silver on the markets. Not only do we have the geopolitical threats, we have domestic political concerns as well. And our enemies use it against us. Everything from the failed communist trappings of all sorts of society with social engineering, with the Black Lives Matter movement, racial socialism, racial Marxism, division upon Americans of all stripes. It's what they seek. That's what they're after. And it all reflects back on our money. And it is absolute travesty. And it angers me. I believe the United States of America, being the country for what it is, being founded upon the principles of individual liberty and responsibility, representing freedoms that we hold dear. Those freedoms are under a threat now than ever before because of the pandemic, which just exacerbates all the other problems that we've had since before that time. Now we are living in an age where many of us didn't see it coming for quite some time. It's rapidly accelerating the decline of Western civilization as we know it, essentially, because it looks like the East is gaining in power. The arbitrage between the East and West in terms of how they value money. And I'm not talking about governments, because communist governments are very different than the people that they rule. And China is a perfect example of it. There's a lot of good Chinese people out there that understand what value and wealth is to be preserved, not only in terms of capital that they may have in their possession, such as gold, especially gold, but it's silver as well, but human capital as well. They know, they understand it. Here in the United States, well, it seems like we're being conditioned, and it's a sad thing. I believe more Americans would be better served if they understood the true value of the worth of money, sound money. I do believe that this dollar bill that you see before you, most people recognize it as currency, the Federal Reserve note. I've done a video talking about why this piece of linen and fiber is indeed money. But it is not sound money, that's for sure. It is deteriorating money. It is eroding away. And even though this particular dollar is very crisp, it's very nice, the value of it just between these 2 years has dropped over 5%. But these are coins. In fact, one of them is a quarter that was minted before 1964. This just happens to be a proof version of that quarter. This one is dated 1960. And it is and was spending money. That's right, spending silver is what I call it. Some people refer to it as constitutional silver as well, but there are other nations around the world that had coins before 1970 that were indeed had a measure of silver in them that provided intrinsic value, monetary value that is derived from the value of the metal contained therein until it was stripped away in the 60s. By the early 70s, pretty much every nation in the world was debased. But nonetheless, this harkens back to a time when silver was used as currency and recognized as money. This coin here is a gold commemorative $5 piece. And what is so special about this is it represents the probably one of the most common gold coins used in everyday transactions, or almost everyday transactions at the time, the $5 gold coin. This is a modern commemorative version of it, with recognizing the death of George Washington, who died on December the 14th, 1799. This portrait will become very recognizable to Americans next year, as it will grace the image of the quarters program for the honoring women. This design was made by Laura Fraser, and that name may sound familiar to you. And so this is probably the most realistic portrait of George Washington at the time, and very well could have, and many people think should have been, the quarter in 1932. But I digress. The quarter dollar, the $5 piece here, this is money that was very common to be used in transactions. Sound money. Monetary sanity. That's what it's all about, folks. We are living in times that try men's souls, for sure. We've been through this before in some ways, in some aspects. There's always, to an extent, periods of history where we think there's no way we're going to survive this, or it can't get much worse. Probably many people think how we handled the Branch Davidian situation in 1993 was a culmination. It was a pretty bad scenario. Or what happened to Japanese Americans during the Roosevelt administration. What happened in Tulsa, Oklahoma against black Americans. Not many people know that story. What Harriet Tubman had to do to free the slaves. Slavery in the United States. We've had periods in our history that have been pretty dark, for sure. By and large, I want to encourage you to be positive and optimistic. We shall get through this. And what's the best way to get through it? And that is to hold fast, and that is to vote for candidates who support the Constitution of the United States. We need to go back to our roots, and those roots lie in the Constitution. Limited government is really what it's about. Regardless of what politicians do, though, we should indeed protect ourselves monetarily and have a little sanity in our lives. Because no matter what politicians do, there are things that we can do to provide sanity in our lives, not only in terms of our monetary sanity, but our sanity in an insane world. We've got to keep our heads level and try to look past the divisiveness and try to come together on common ground, pray, do lots of praying for our nation. We need it. But I believe in fiscal sanity, monetary sanity, and let's try to work our way out of this insane world. And I pray for those who have lost their lives in Afghanistan and for the families that they're leaving behind, and for all who have suffered and died in that war for the 20 years that we were there, and for the families of the Afghans, the innocent Afghans who were killed as well. So let's look to sanity, and let's move in a direction where we have sound money, and gold and silver provide that sanity in these times. So if you are new to stacking or have thought about silver and gold, you may be concerned a little bit about the price fluctuations that we've seen. I would encourage you to, yes, recognize that they are there. We're going to see times where prices fluctuate, but over the course of time, typically they do keep up with inflation, and that's what it's about. It's about savings account. And it's that stability that the dollar doesn't have, really. By design, it degrades at least 2% each year by design, and it's gone wild away from that by more than double with the amount of this inflation that we're seeing, which could turn into hyperinflation, especially given where we are at right now with the standing of the United States in the world now. We'll see how it plays out. But nonetheless, I believe silver and gold do provide that monetary sanity, and as we're seeking monetary sanity, let's look for peace and serenity in our lives and pray that God will give that to us all. So I hope you found this video encouraging and insightful. I'd like to extend a multitude of gratitude to you all for taking the time to watch, and to encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.